if you can give people maybe just some insight, let's kind of start high level and just in your own words, when we say tax savings, what are we talking about for rental properties? And then take it as granular as you'd like to go.
Well, I think, and it is a hard concept to try to explain because I tried to explain it to my friend and she just didn't get it until she got that IRS refund check in her hand because that
Hmm.
was real money. And that's usually when it gels. And that's why I think it's good to just experience this as you go along and have trust and faith that it will work out. And one of the things that Dan Merrill said is that, don't work so much in your business, work on your business. And that was a concept that was foreign to me because I was the house cleaner, the leasing agent, the property manager. I had a whole backstory for the Denver houses that I owned, in that, I'm just the property manager and I am representing the owners. And because normally when I first started out, I was so proud and I said, you're talking to the owner and I'm the owner. And all of a sudden, the tenants, I started having more problems with them because they would want to break on the rent or they'd want to swap, some handyman thing they could do for lower rent. And I didn't know what their painting skills were. And I just thought, no, I don't think so. And it just worked a lot smoother if I positioned myself as the property manager. Well, then when I learned to work on my business and not in my business, one of the biggest mistakes that people who manage their own properties make is you lose sight of what the market rent really is. You try to look at Zillow and Rentometer and these online tools. And when I started, it was before the internet. I am really old now. And so we just had to, like, dialing for dollars, call people and say, what are you charging for rent? And it
Hmm.
was a guessing game. Now things are a lot more automated, but another thing that I realized is I was paying retail for all of my repairs and my improvements when I would buy carpeting or appliances. And a professional property manager gets trade discounts, they do volume pricing, and a lot of times, I don't know what it is about these house cleaners, but my Denver property manager, I'll walk into these properties and I'm thinking, they clean this better than I could clean. And at
Hmm.
the time, I would pay extra. It was $100 more to get the oven with the self cleaning feature. But because I was the house cleaner, I would pay the $100 more for the self cleaning oven because I was the cleaner. And
Yeah.
then I saw this cleaner that the property manager handled and I was like, "Wow." So you can leverage your time better, and that is when I started, once I got rid of the day-to-day property management and leasing duties, then I could focus on my overall portfolio and growth. And that's when I could look at, okay, what's my gross income? What's my net income after the mortgages are paid and the repairs and the expenses and property management? And then what's my net income for the marginal tax savings? And just the highest tax rate that I ever had was after my father died and I inherited some life insurance money. I had loaded him up with life insurance. And so all this money came to me tax free, which was really nice. I started out as a financial planner, so I learned how to do that. And everybody says, when you're grieving, don't make any big financial decisions. Just allow yourself time to grieve. So I got this money and I thought, well, okay. I paid off all my mortgages and I was quiet for a year. And I really loved my dad and I missed him terribly. And then all of a sudden it came time to do my taxes, and I had the highest tax bill I'd ever had because I'd just gotten rid of all my deductions. I paid them all off. So now I
Hmm.
understand I'm not afraid of mortgages now. Even though I'm almost 65, I'm going to die with these mortgages because if the tenant helps pay them off and the federal government is encouraging me to do that, why not? Now I'm not
Hmm.
crazy. I don't have, it's like a 50-50 ratio. They're not, I'm not just cutting it to the edge,
Right.
but I think you can really get farther faster if you can learn to manage your federal tax bill.
Yeah, it's like shifting that focus on the things that really equate to wealth, right? Many people are like, oh, geez, I want to find a property manager, but I want to go on the cheap. And I
Right.
only want to pay a 8% property management fee. And they spend all of their time in negotiating, trying to find somebody, and eventually they do. When if they found the best service, the most value, and we're comfortable paying market rates, let's just say that's 10%, and then spent that amount of time focusing on how do you minimize your biggest expense, which your taxes might be 30%, 40% of all of your income. How do you spend your focus on that? Then you can have the outcomes that you really want.